What's up everybody, Brian here with BPS Customs, and today, 3 big things happened to me. 1, I got this slick haircut. 2, I built myself a nice ghetto homemade teleprompter. Can you tell I am reading off of a teleprompter? And 3, I finished my RX 480 Crossfire benchmarks. So after finishing my initial round of testing with the RX 480, which you could find in my video here, the obvious thing on my mind was, can 2 of these hang with a GTX 1070? At a similar total cost, it's likely that in the near future, system builders will struggle with the decision on whether to use the 1 or 2 card solution. Do you choose the single card, or do you go with the slightly more powerful dual card setup that affords you a little more performance but also generates more heat and draws more power? A single RX 480 will achieve performance similar to that of a GTX 970, although in my testing, the RX 480 was a narrow winner. The biggest advantage that AMD has in the war against the green machine is price. The RX 480 is less expensive than the GTX 970, and 2 of them in Crossfire is actually only about $40 more than a GTX 1070. This gives us a great point at which to start our comparison. Clearly the 970 is being outclassed by the AMD card here, but do you want 2 of them? Does Crossfire provide the same kind of scaling that SLI does? Do you have the cooling capacity to handle the extra heat? And does your power supply generate the necessary wattage to power both cards? Our test bench for these tests included an overclocked i7 5820K, 16 gigs of Crucial Ballistics DDR4, an Asus X99 Sabertooth motherboard, an ADATA 240GB SSD, and a Corsair H110i GTX CPU cooler. When running Unigine Heaven, power consumption peaked at 472 total watts from the wall for the RX 480 Crossfire setup, but only 299 watts for the GTX 1070. This is a significant victory for NVIDIA here, as the previous generation Maxwell architecture was not particularly power efficient, and clearly Pascal is making a difference. 472 watts is not a bad number for a 2-card setup at all, but do keep in mind this will actually affect your power bill. Additionally, the heat generated by 2 of the Polaris cards is a definite non-zero factor. Over the course of our testing while running the 2 RX 480s, ambient temperature in the room did go up 7 or 8 degrees Celsius, despite the fact that the AC was running the whole time. It got toasty in here. It seems that with 2 cards sharing the graphics load, each individual card does not get quite as hot as 1 card does running the same benchmarks. This does not mean, however, that you should ignore this aspect of the results. The AMD cards do generally run hotter, as they have historically. I ran the RX 480s and the 1070 through our standard benchmarking suite at both stock speeds and their maximum achievable overclock. Here are the results. The first thing to take away from this data is that Rise of the Tomb Raider hates multi-GPU setups. I think it's safe to say that in the future I won't be using that test anytime I'm running a configuration with 2 GPUs. However, it is interesting to see what happens when a game is not optimized for more than 1 graphics card. The second thing to note is that the RX 480 is a terrible overclocker. As noted in my RX 480 review video, I was unable to push these cards past 4%, which really didn't give any kind of performance gains that were outside of the margin of error. In fact, in 2 of our tests, the results actually went down. This is most likely as a result of immature drivers, and also the fact that none of the software we're using supports the Vulkan API at this time. As such, I'm going to focus my discussion on the results achieved at stock speeds. So with the exception of Rise of the Tomb Raider, the Crossfire setup of RX 480s goes toe-to-toe with a single GTX 1070. Firestrike is a clear winner for Team Red, but the other benchmarks show less of a bias. This is really great news for dedicated AMD fans with a graphics card budget of between $400 and $500. You now have a choice in that price range that competes directly with what Nvidia is putting out there. However, I can't say that I would endorse using two RX 480s in lieu of a GTX 1070 if you have the option. When all factors are taken into consideration, it actually doesn't make much sense to choose the dual card solution when performance is similar and the price is higher. An RX 480 setup is actually most likely to be the best choice for somebody that doesn't quite have the cheese to afford two of them right now. So you could buy one now and then later on save up a little bit of money and buy the second one. By adding the second card to your system, you're going to achieve that level of performance that you desired to begin with, and you could do it in 2 steps. But if you have the funds right now to either afford 2 RX 480s or 1 GTX 1070, the 1070 is the way to go. Are you guys looking for a GTX 1070 or an RX 480? Check out my links in the video description through my Amazon affiliate account. Any items purchased through the account give a little kickback to the channel. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Get subscribed and smash on that like button down there, and stay tuned for the next video that's coming out, which is going to be when I finally finish Deep Red. Maybe.